Now let's continue. Preprocessor directive and string. Remember, in our earlier definitions of basic C++, we came across this word, preprocessor. Now, remember we said a preprocessor is a program that builds the file that we link into our project. For instance, we have hash includes, and then we've included other libraries, and these libraries has to be linked by the linker and get built together with our program. Now, this is what the program does. Preprocessor. Now, when you say preprocessor directive, these are the statements in our code that we usually begin with the hash include. So here we have about 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are about to use these. Okay, we are about to use these. The mat.h, the string, we are about to use them. Now, these are all preprocessor directives. Preprocessor directive. So now, seeing this preprocessor directive, this is what has to come in mind. All right, so we have a lot of preprocessor directive here. These are the statements that we use to include other libraries from the C++ library and use them in our code. So when you see iOS stream, you know that this is going to contain an extended library that we didn't write. It had been pre-written by the C++ and C++ developers, and we are able to use the code from it. So if you hold Command or Control and then you click on this link using the NetBeans, it is going to open that file, and we can see the codes that have been pre-written within it. You see, this one also includes other preprocessor directives. Okay, so during the compilation, it tells our program that the preprocessor tells the compiler that these are files that the linker has to link and to our program in order to get the build version of it, which is going to be our object program, which the object program is an equivalent machine language that the computer can understand and process. So here, how I've talked about our object program for some time now. Now, how do you know where our build file is or where the object program is? Now, in order for you to have the object program, this is what we need to do. You right click on your project and then you select build. And when you build, what you're going to get is an object program. Now, this is where it is going to be. From your menu bar, look for Windows, which is the last but one, and look for files. And when you go to files, you see the panel, the file tab opens, and then you open the arithmetic operators. You go to the dist, you go to debug, and then you open this folder, and then this is our object program. Now, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to go to the directive here. I'm opening the new finder. It's going to be here. So dist, debug, and then this is the object program I'm talking about. So you can run this program. When you open it, it opens in terminal. On Windows, it will open in the CMD, and this is the program that we've written so far. And so it says enter the radius of a circle, and we say, okay, we want to enter 4, and when you hit enter, we calculate the area of a circle with 4.0 radius is 50.2653, and the session get logged out. Now, the following thing that you see is the terminal's way of trying to say it is done with the processing of the code. So we don't need the NetBeans to run the program for us to be able to input the data, but we can use the object program and then run it on the machine. Remember, it is the equivalent machine language for this Mac. So when we run this, it is going to be able to process our code for us. Okay, so let's continue quickly. I'll go back and continue. So remember, you can use preprocessor directives and the names of header files to tell the computer the location of the code provided in libraries. Okay, so the preprocessor directives are, okay, so just as I showed you here, anytime you want to include a library, you use the hash include and then the statement will comes thereafter. Okay, so now let's look at the example with the string directive. Okay, now one of the few things we need to know about the string is that the string, okay, is a string or sequence of zeros or more characters. So wherever we see in your code, if you have a sequence of characters of 0 or more characters, okay, that means the characters can have the sequence can have 0 characters, or it can have more than 0 characters. When you have that sequence, know that that is a string. But this is not enough to tell what a string is. Let's continue. Now, a string type is a programmer defined data type. Now, remember that when we're using the other primitive data type, like the integer, the double, the float, we didn't have to include any preprocessor directive. But for you to be able to use a string, you need to include the string preprocessor directive. So that will be hash include string that I showed you earlier on. Now, the data type string is a feature of the ANSI or ISO standard, that is C++ standard. We've spoken about the ANSI and then the ISO, so you know what they are. And to use this type, you need to access program components from the library, which we have already talked about. So for you to be able to use it, you do hash include and then the string to tell the computer that to tell the compiler that we are going to use a string within our program, and therefore the preprocessor has to process that directive for us. A string is a sequence of, we've already talked about this, and then in C++, okay, strings are enclosed in double quotation mark. Now, this last point is very, very important. We've already said that a string is a sequence of 0 or more characters. So wherever you have a sequence of characters, then we say, is that string? Now, the question is, can we just say that this is string because a character, this is another character? Can this be a string? No, because of the last statement. It says that now strings in C++ are enclosed in double quotation mark. Now when we look in our program, then we can say, okay, now I see double quotation mark. These are characters that have been enclosed in, and therefore I can call this as a string type. Okay, but that is not the variable that we have created, but this is an example of the value that we assign to a string data type, because this is a string expression. And then when you look at this one too, it is the same thing here. These are all characters: a space, after space, increment, space, equal to space, whatever is within the double quote is a string expression. Okay, so now a string containing no characters is called a null or empty string. Yes, remember we said it can be a sequence of 0 or more characters. Now, if you have a string, just the double quotation mark, and it has no character, okay, remember the space is a character. The space is also a character. It contains nothing, then we call that a null or an empty string. Okay, now note that this, just like I said, is the empty string because it has no space character between the closing quote. Between the closing quote. All right, so let's look at some examples here. If in a program you see this is a string expression. So you have William Jacob. Now this is an example of a string expression. Another one is Mickey, which is also a string expression. This is also another one, but notice this one. This one has a space there. Okay, the space is also a character. So this is not a null string or an empty string. This contains a character. Now, every character in a string has a relative position in the string. Okay, now what I mean is this, that the position of the first character is always 0 and the position of the second character is 1, and it can go on like that. So when you have William and you say, okay, what is the position of the W? The W is 0. It is 0 index. So what it means is that the first character is always start from 0. So what is the position of the first character, which is W, the position of the first character, which is I, okay, or what is that? Position 1 is I, position 0 is W. When you say what is the length of the string, it is the number of characters in it. So for instance, when we ask what is the length of the characters here, what is the length of William Jacob, this string, we are trying to count the number of characters within that string. Don't worry, let's quickly look at an example to express what we're talking about.